my mom made me start going to a youth group and started like tasting the sweetness of good community, but it was like only once a week, and it was like in the town over, so it wasn't the people I went to school with, and my family wasn't super involved, and so still only like experiencing a fraction of what healthy community was. And then in high school, still part of that youth group, but at like 13-ish years old, I couldn't like force the fullness of that community because I was like under the authority of my parents. And so it wasn't really until I came to A&M that I experienced the fullness of community. My very first Sunday, I did early move in, and so I didn't really have any friends yet. My older sister went here, and I like didn't want to just follow her. I was like, I already followed you to A&M, I don't really want to follow you to church, but I didn't have friends yet, so I was like, all right, we'll just go with you 1 week. And I come to Antioch, and I remember being in the sanctuary, and I had like a lot of stuff going on with my dad. No one knew that. I was not here telling anyone that, but there was a lot of hurt with my dad. And this girl comes up to me, and she's like, hey, can I share a word with you? And internally, I was like, what the heck does that mean? I don't know what that is. I was like, it's okay. But she comes and she prays for me, and she's like, I feel like the Lord has a lot of healing to do like with your dad, and I feel like that's gonna happen here. And I was like, whoa, that's really crazy. How do you know that? So that happened the first Sunday, and then that same Sunday, I go out to lunch with my sister in her section, and people just like are so kind, and they were all my age. There wasn't like crude joking, there wasn't like all the things that I was used to people my age doing. It was just like, oh, y'all are like nice to each other. You seem to actually really care about each other. And then I got invited to play spike ball later that day. My sister was supposed to go, and I called her on the way, and she's like, no, you need to make friends. You're going alone. And I was like, so scary. But I go, and they like remembered my name, and they like wanted to actually know me, and they invited me to life group. And so that same week where I was like, I'm not following my sister to Antioch, I went to all the Antioch things and totally fell in love. Not because it was Antioch, but because the way that people pursued me. And for the first time in my whole life, I was like, man, this is like the fullness of community that I think I've read about in the Bible, that I think I've read about in Acts, but I've never actually tasted it. I've never actually experienced it. And it was like, man, that girl sharing a word with me and like speaking to my heart, and then people just doing simple, kind things. I was like, oh, this is different. Like, I'm not used to that. And when I went to life group later that week, we read Acts 2, 42 to 47, which at the time I didn't know we were going to do every single week, but we did. But I'm going to read it. It's so great. It says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And so as a life group, we would read that every week. And more than just like reading it, like we were actually living it. And my life has truly changed because of it. So the rest of the night, we're just going to go through some key aspects of community that I think are just really important and really impactful if you incorporate them into your life. And so the first one is living openly and vulnerably in community. I'll say that again, living openly and vulnerably in community. I think that that is really important. In verse 44, it said, all who believed were together and had all things in common. And this could talk about physical possessions. To an extent, it most likely is talking about physical possessions, but I think it also is talking about openness of the community as a whole. Like, they didn't live separate lives. They didn't have a church life and a work life and a school life and an org life. It's just like, they didn't have all these different lives and they're not connecting. And they're just truly open and transparent with one another within their community, so they were able to authentically be themselves in all of those areas. It's like, if I'm an engineer student, I'm not going to go to Zach and be one person there and then go to Life Group and be another. Like, I need to be able to be the same person in all of those things. And that happens through them, like, being in discipleship with one another, being open and vulnerable and authentic, and having someone who truly knows you really helps with that. This might be where, like, I talk about the difference between friendship and community, because I do think that they are different. Because you can have friends that you hang out with, laugh with, have things in common with, but that doesn't mean that they're your community necessarily. Your community is a group of people around you who are shaping your life. It's the idea of being disciples together. It's the idea of like chasing after Jesus together, making each other look more like Jesus through sharpening one another and like really getting shoulder to shoulder and just pointing one another towards Jesus. And community isn't just about being great friends with people. It's about truly pointing each other to Jesus. You worship together, you be completely transparent and vulnerable with each other, sharing your possessions, both physical and like emotional, mental, spiritually. In a cool, like, I can't say this word, sociological, psychology, whatever, fact that there's been a lot of research done. It says that you will look like the 5 people that you spend the most amount of time with. And so a question that a lot of you had during our Worldview series was, how do I navigate the difference between Christian and non-Christian friends? I had a lot of questions on that. And first I just want to know, it is important to have friends who do not love God. We want to be in the world, and like don't be weird about it. We need to be in the world, and we need to, what am I trying to say? Yeah, you shouldn't just be in the Christian bubble. You shouldn't only have Christian friends, because other people need to know about Jesus, and so that's really important. But you can have friends that don't love God. Don't hear that I'm not trying to say that. But that doesn't mean that they are like your closest community, because your community is the people who are closest to you and the people who are shaping you. Because like no matter what, if you're on Revive, you heard me talk a lot about this, but you are always going to be shaped into something. You're either being shaped into Jesus or you're not. Like there really isn't an in-between. And so if your tightest and closest circle of people are people who don't really want to follow God, like I don't really care how disciplined you are, science proves that eventually you will start to look like that group of people who you spend the most of time with, or spend the most amount of time with. And so the key to making it, if you really want to know like a way to keep chasing after God 30 years from now, is like good community. Because we are social creatures, and in our age, our culture, our society, we don't like to think that others affect who we are, but it just like it's true that they do. We are shaped by what we surround ourselves with. Also want to acknowledge that like there may be seasons where it is really difficult to find community. Maybe you're graduating soon and moving to a new city. Maybe you want to go overseas. You're going to be in a nation where there's like literally no believers. And you're like, how do I find good community there? But just to encourage you with something that literally Jesus says. He says in Mark 10:29-30, he says, "Truly I say to you, there is no one who has left house or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or lands for my sake and for the gospel, who will not receive 100-fold now in this time, houses and brothers and sisters and mothers and children and lands with persecutions, and in the age to come eternal life." And so the beauty of that is, even if you like leave good community to go somewhere else with the Lord, if you really are chasing after the Lord, if you really are walking in His will, He promises that He's going to give you community. And even in Genesis, where He says that it's not good for man to be alone, like that wasn't just for Adam and Eve necessarily. It's like, no, like we need community. We need people to do life with. And like He will surround you with community, even if it looks different maybe than what you're used to life group here. You may not always have like a huge life group of 30 people and they're all saying, yes, chase Jesus. You actually may have a lot of people saying, don't do it. But Jesus promises that He will give you brothers and sisters and mothers and fathers and lands and etc. So I think we can always find community wherever. And a quote that a friend shared with me recently, oh no, I think I accidentally deleted it. Wait, he said, one who loves the idea of community won't always have community, but one who loves his neighbor will always have community. And so it's like you have the choice to like dive in community or not, if that makes sense. And so real quick, we're going to have like a little discussion with the people around you. But the question is, what is the difference between having Christian friends and being part of a Christian community versus not? And how can you tell which one you're really experiencing? I'll say it one more time, but then just chat with the people around you. What's the difference between having Christian friends and being part of a Christian community versus not? And how can you tell which one you're really experiencing? that y'all talked about?
We talked about two things, like genuine vulnerability with like the correct people in a Christian circle, where you're actually sharing the deep things that are like life-giving when we confess sins and stuff like that. And then also kind of the way, like by faith, we will see the fruits. And so if we're entering community by faith and we're pursuing that from a place of faith, that there are going to be good fruits that come from that. And it's not that we're chasing like by chasing community, we're chasing good fruits. But if we're faithful to enter into community in that way, there will be good fruits in our life that come from that.
Yeah, that's so good. To your first point about like being vulnerable with the community, I was asking God just in that moment of discussion, I was like, man, but what do they need to know? And I feel like he was just giving us a challenge of like, man, if we really want to be known by people, if we really desire to like be invested in that community, like we have to lead out in vulnerability. Like you can't expect people to know you just from like showing up. It's like you have to show up and invest, show up and put your roots in. You can't just show up and be a bystander. So I totally agree with that. Leading out in vulnerability and allowing yourself to be known. You have to like let the walls down in community. You have to be vulnerable. What else? Any other groups? Sorry, I forgot to raise hands. Yeah, go.
Yeah, so we talked about some similar ideas with vulnerability, but so I won't go like super in depth into those because those are very similar things to what we talked about. But we also talked about not going into a community with just trying to like make yourself happy, but surround yourself with friends, but doing so to love other people. And through that, you'll be able to build some great relationships, but doing it under the premise of love your neighbor as yourself. And ultimately from that, if you truly do love other people, God will bless you for that service. And you'll be able to, especially if you are vulnerable, build those relationships, but not just doing it so you can like have friends to hang out with or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's so good because also community is not easy necessarily. It can be really hard when you see the brokenness of people. It can be really messy, and so yeah, choosing love even in those hard moments, so sweet, so worth it. Are you gonna say something, Liz?
Yeah. We talked about like once you're like in a Christian community and you like leave that space and like go home or go to the next whatever you're doing, you'll often leave like feeling nourished and fulfilled and encouraged from that, like from being around those people. And then like if you're in a different environment, you might leave that, like people who aren't living within Christ and having friendship in another community that isn't Christian, you might leave that feeling discouraged or like confused about aspects of like your own personal faith because you don't know how to respond to what they're saying. So whereas like you would give feedback in a Christian community and like what the Lord says and what the Bible says and clarity.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. I totally agree, for sure. Someone back here maybe have anyways? No? Sweet.
We were talking about how one aspect of like really good Christian community is that there's like a challenge aspect there too, where it's like high challenge to really just like pursue Jesus and people that will like work through convictions with you and will like speak honestly to you and not just, you know, listen to the things that you're going through and say like, oh, I'm so sorry, you know, when there's like truth that could be spoken over that and how that really like pushes you towards Jesus.
Yeah, for sure. We don't want to be idle. We want to be iron sharpening iron and just that push towards Jesus. Anyone else? Any thoughts? Cool. So going to go into the next part. Another important aspect of community is how to honor one another. Honor is so important. We don't just want to be in these communities and just like trashing each other, or I think a lot of like our culture and generation is just like, I don't know, joking, trash talking, all this. Not all the time, but we just want to be people of honor. And so Philippians 2:1-4, it says, so if there is any encouragement in Christ, any comfort from love, any participation in the Spirit, any affection and sympathy, complete my joy by being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And so I think a lot of this point is like around humility. Like, what does it look like to truly count the people around you as more important than yourself? What does it look like to put another's well-being, another's spiritual health above your own? Because we can't forget just two really key parts to honor and humility and whatnot. One, that we are all made in the image of God. Every single person, even the person who has been the most mean to you, even, I think of the worst person you can think of. I think my go-to bad person is Hitler, and I'm like, man, Hitler was made in the image of God. And he really was, Jake.
That's true.
And two, the second part, so one, we are all made in the image of God, every single person. Two, not one of us is better than the other. Like, I don't know, there's two hands you can take. Maybe sometimes you think that you are better than someone, or maybe sometimes you think you are less than someone. But we are all on the same playing field. No one is better. Because without Jesus, we are all just dirty rags. And it is because of him and only him that we have any more value than that. Like, it is only because of him. Without him, dirty rag. That I literally wrote that in all caps on my notes. Like, we are just dirty rags without him. And he is the one who has made us holy and set apart. Not us, not our actions, not our good deeds, not anything we have ever done makes us who we are. Like, it is him. And so because of that, we must treat one another with love, with respect, and with honor, knowing, again, one, that we are made in the image of God, and two, none of us is better than another. And so that's when it goes back to Philippians 2, 1-4, says, in humility count others more significant than yourselves, and let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. And then also, the way that we treat one another is the way that we treat Jesus. Like, Jesus says, to his disciples one day, the way you feed the poor, the way you, care for them, that's how you care for me. And I'm like, wait, what? But it's just so true. Like, the way that we treat the person on the bus, the way that we treat the person at HEB, if you're checking out and you can tell maybe they're having a bad day, but you just don't really talk to them because you're like, man, I'm doing my own thing. It's like, wait, that's an opportunity to love Jesus well, and an opportunity to love that person, but it's like, I don't know, it's Jesus and the person. It's him and them. And it's just really, really important. And so again, we must treat one another with love and respect and honor. And the way that we talk about each other just really must be in love. And so in your community, don't encourage slander. Don't encourage gossip. We want to be people who truly are always building each other up. And I don't know, I think that our culture, sometimes we're just so used to man, I'm just venting, or I'm just processing, or I'm just thinking through this. But are you really just gossiping, and it's really tearing that other person down, and you at the beginning of that conversation to the end actually have not made any more progress on loving that person while they're being resolved. You just feel like you've gotten some steam off. And it's just that's not the goal. The goal is to love one another. And so before you talk to someone about any situation going on in your life, if you haven't talked to God about it, I think really encourage you, talk to God about it before you bring it up to a person. It's okay to process, but check your heart and make sure that you really are processing, and it's not just to bring someone down or to make someone agree with you that this person did whatever they did. It's no, I want to honor. And also, something that really helps if you're struggling to honor or if you're struggling to love someone well is thankfulness and gratitude. And so you can start asking the Lord, man, what are some ways that I can be thankful for this person? What are some ways that I can love this person? And something that I've had to do, because I've had hard people in my life where it's really hard to love, and I have to ask the Lord, man, what is your heart for them, God? How can I have compassion for this person? And he really will give it, because the reality is he loves them way more than anyone ever could. And so if you ask God, Lord, how can I love this person? I can just imagine getting so giddy. He's like, oh my goodness, let me tell you how to love this person. Let me tell you what I love about them. Let me tell you the goal that I see in them. And you just keep praying for that person that's really hard to love, and he's going to make you love them, help you love them. He really will. And so honor is really important. Also, I'm going to talk about this later, but it's just coming to my mind now. It says in John 13:35 that he will know that we are his disciples by the way we love one another. And so that is a visible act. And so when people look at us, they should be able to tell, man, you are a disciple of Jesus. And if we're not loving one another well, if we're not honoring one another, we're missing the point. So, yeah. Another discussion question. What are specific ways that you can actively practice humility and honor in your daily interactions to those around you? And I know this is like a simple one of like, well, honor, talk nicely to people. But actually try and think of like some real practical ways that you can intentionally incorporate humility and honor in your life. Cool. Good.
It just makes you feel a lot more seen when somebody remembers a small detail about the conversation you had with them, or a question they asked, or follow-ups with hey, how's your class been going, or did you finish that one assignment, or just being more intentional with making people feel heard and also just seen, and little things like that. So.
Yeah, I think that's what pulled me in when I told y'all I first went to Antioch and then they invited me to spike ball. It's they all remembered my name and they remembered what I was studying. And those little things, it's little freshman me who had no friends, that meant so much to me. They were all seniors, whoa, y'all remember my name? And it's just really impactful. So I agree. Yes.
Yeah, so we had talked about, especially in the context of humility, obviously not viewing yourself as better than someone else and being willing to serve others in any capacity, but at the same time not seeing yourself as less than, but still recognizing that you are made in the image of God and that you are priceless. And so kind of having that balance to where you're not then leading into a sense of comparison where I have to serve this person because they're essentially better than me or something like that. But even though all of us are made equally in the image of God, being willing to serve one another and even being willing to serve people who aren't believers, to be a light to them, and not seeing yourself as I'm better than them because I'm saved, they're not saved, but seeing them as an opportunity to share the love of God with them. So.
Yeah, that's so good. It makes me think of where it says love your neighbor as yourself, but if I'm not loving myself well, how can I love my neighbor? And so you want to be secure in your identity. You want to know who you are, because if I'm not secure in my identity, how am I speaking identity into the next person? It's I need to know first and foremost, man, the Father loves me, I am his daughter, I have an inheritance with Jesus, let me go share that knowledge with others. But if I'm insecure there, it's hard to help others be secure there. So totally agree. Anyone else?
I think one thing that we talked about was asking the Lord how you can honor somebody, especially if you know you're going to meet up with somebody. So say we're going to get coffee, being okay, but how can I honor Ashlie today? Mm-hmm. And I found in doing that he gives me really specific ways. Sometimes it's just literally drive. Wow. Be the one to drive. Or sometimes it's bake them something or give them a word.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. Kind of convicting too. Should be asking the Lord that. I think a lot of times there's spaces where the Lord is probably so giddy to move in, but we just don't think to ask. So that's good. One more? Come on, guys.
I would say we were talking about a heart change, where there's always people in our lives that kind of frustrate us a little bit, but it's usually taking time to pray for it.
Yeah.
I think it's really
Yeah, that's really smart. You can still share.
Okay, I just didn't know if they were sharing that.
Yeah, there's some.
What we talked about was encouraging people, but also a specific way to honor them is whenever you meet someone and they're telling you about their life or their day, they're talking a lot about themselves. A lot of times, especially for me, then I'll find myself wanting to respond with, "Oh, well, this is what I'm doing in my life," mm-hmm. and return with, "Well, this is what I've done. I'm doing this over here." Mm-hmm. Instead of doing that, the Lord's convicting me to be instead, I want you to just ask them more about their life and turn it back to them. Mm-hmm. I feel it's a very good way to honor someone and to just humble yourself and show that you care for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. those are all so good. Love. I have 2 more points. The next one is generosity. It's actually so important in community, and I feel like, I don't know, when I came into college, I did not have a good frame for what generosity looked like. So looking back in Acts 2, it says that they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all, as any had need. Not just as some had need, but as any had need. And so what does it look like to believe that your finances are not your own? Just to share a little bit about my story with finances. When I came to college, I did not have help from my parents. And so I very much so had a poverty mindset where I was like, I can't spend money on anything. Tithing, did not know anything about her, wasn't a friend with her. I just really was like, no, I've got to be very intentional with this or I'm going to end up on the streets. You know, this is like horrible poverty mindset, which is just so not true. Because Psalm 23 is very true when it says that he's the good shepherd and we lack nothing. But I didn't know that. And so over the past 5 or 6 years, I've really learned that like when I like have this tight grip on these things that don't even belong to me, it's like, wow, that's not really getting me anywhere. Because this really is a conversation about stewardship. Everything and anything that you have has been given to you by God. It's not your money, it's God's money that He's given you to steward. It's not your car, it's not your phone, it's not your shirt or your shoes or your bottle, like whatever item you can think of in your mind that you would typically, like if someone said, hey, is that yours? You said, yeah, that's mine. It's like, wait, let's shift that and be like, actually, no, that belongs to God. And so He's giving us these things that are simply possessions for us to steward. And when we die, we don't take these possessions with us. Oh man, someone shared with me recently, they said anything that I hold on to in this world, I have already lost. But anything that I give to the Lord, like I have forever, I can't lose. And so this idea of possessions being ours, it's like, wait, let's actually let it go. Let's actually be so open-handed with it and see what the Lord can do with it. I was at an ADS open house, slide plug, it already passed, but you should still do ADS. But my sophomore year, I think, and this guy came, he was speaking on this topic of generosity. And when he just like finally drilled into my head of like, man, nothing you have is your own, nothing you have is your own. And also that you can't out-risk, you can't out-to-give God. That's like when my heart truly was stirred for tithing, not because I thought it was like a law or a thing I needed to do, but I was like, oh, it's not mine anyways. And so when I'm holding on so tightly to all of my possessions, it's like that's not actually the heart of God. It's like, man, let me like give to the Lord and say, okay, Lord, I trust you. I trust you enough that if I give this up, you're gonna bless me and you're gonna bless my needs. And He did show up. I like was so fine all through college and didn't need to be freaked out. And it's been really sweet. But understanding that reality of like, okay, these aren't my possessions, it's not my money, it's not my XYZ. I think if we start to have the mindset of how can I use the resources that God has given me to glorify Him, to bless the people around me in the best way possible. It's like, how can I use my resources to bless others and bring God glory? If we start having that mindset, I think we will naturally become more generous people. Kind of like Faith was saying, like to ask God often, how can I honor this person? How can I, or like Jacob saying, man, how can I encourage the person in this moment? It's like, okay, let's often ask God, how can I be generous with my resources today? And I mean, this is a scary one, but this guy knew once, he and his friends and their life group, they would often just pull out Venmo and play like Venmo roulette, and they'd be like, all right, God, who do you want us to Venmo today? And they were just like so open with their resources that they were just willing to do that. And so I just challenge y'all, like maybe ask God once a week, maybe once a month if that feels a little too scary, but like, man, Lord, who do you want me to give money to today? And He may say no one, but He may say someone. And it's like, are you willing enough to be so open-handed with your resources that you'll ask God those questions? And those are like more spontaneous acts of generosity. But whenever someone like asks you to donate for a trip, or if they like need help with their car or whatever, like do you just normally see that and think, someone else, like they'll probably be taken care of? Or is it like, man, God, how can I partner with them? It may just be that I prayed and I partner with them prayerfully. Or maybe God wants you to give them some of your resources, but it's like we have to invite the Lord into that to know what He's saying. And so it's not about accumulating items and possessions. It's not about how can I be successful in this world. It's not about how can I be rich. It's how can I be a blessing to as many people around me as I can. And something that another person taught me in a teaching, but they ask God every single day. They're like, Lord, what will bring you the most glory today, and what will bless the most people around me? I'll say it again. It was just so impactful to me. Like he said, Lord, what will bring you the most glory today, and what will bless the most people around me? And so it's kind of like taking us out of the equation, not in the sense of like we don't matter. We do matter. We're children of God. But you make it about him, and you make it about them. And everything else, as we seek the kingdom of God, really does fall in line. And how, like, I feel like all of us have this desire to be so radically sold out for God. Like, we really do have that desire within us. But it's scary sometimes. But, like, what would it look like if we really lived so radically open with our resources? Like, I think it'd be so much more freeing and so way less stressful to not care about all those things. Not to the point where we're stupid or foolish with our resources, but we're at the point where it's like, man, Lord, I really do trust that you're going to provide. I really do trust that you're going to move in these areas. And I think a lot of the burdens just come off. The more trust we have for God, the more these burdens come off. And so asking him often, how can I be generous? Gosh, and I just, in community, I love when I look around and I see people like radically giving to each other. Like, it is one of the most awesome things. And I think that is one of the major signs of a vibrant, healthy, spiritual community. Like, are the people being radically generous? And I have so many testimonies, so I just want to share a few. This one girl, she's super awesome. She's off living in the nations right now. But before she went, she had like a ton of student debt, and just a group of people in her life rallied together. Like, it was a lot of debt. 26,000? 26 is really vivid in mind, but it was so much. And like within a very short amount of time, like I want to say weeks, it was just covered. Like, her community came together and covered that. And so that's a testimony of another friend. I personally have a lot of testimonies. Like I told you all through college, is financially independent, and there would just be things all the time that would come up for me. There was one semester I was gonna be like $1,600 short to pay my tuition, and I was like, no, Lord, I don't know how to pay my rent, and I don't know how to pay my tuition. Please help. But I wasn't really talking to that many people about it. My close friends knew, but I was just like, I don't know, Lord, you're gonna have to show up, and I've said that you're faithful, and so you've got to be faithful. And literally, I showed up to life group the next week, and everyone's kind of being weird when I walk in, and I'm like, what are y'all doing? This is weird. And they just had raised like $1,600 for me, like the exact amount that I needed. And I was like, whoa, that's insane. And then another time, my computer that I like used for work and school and everything just crashed. It was just so broken. And so for a while, well, no, the screen was totally broken, but the computer itself still worked. And so I would just like take it to class and hook it up to a monitor. I carried an HDMI cord around with me everywhere, and I'd have to like find the mouse on the extra screen. It was really painful. But then my roommates rallied together, like all of the college ministry. Some of y'all are probably around here for that. But they like raised enough money for me to get this computer right here. This is a testimony of generosity in our community. And then one more personal testimony. I think it was my sophomore year. My car got totaled. Someone like made a U-turn in front of me, accident, whatever. And so I was without a car for a bit. And I remember I was talking to the Lord, and I was like, I don't need a car. Like, I can do the bus, I can bike, I can make it work. It'd be a blessing though, you know, if you want to help me get a car. But for a while, I just didn't have one. Months, I think, I don't remember. But my friend, like everyone knew I didn't have a car because I was that person asking for rides all the time, which is great. If you do rides, keep doing it. Generous with rides, everyone. But my friend's dad, who lives in Lubbock, I didn't even have his number. He texted me. His name's Chris. Chris texted me. He's like, hey, Ashlie, I heard that you were looking for a car, and I'm getting a new one. I feel like the Lord told me to just give away my old one. He's like, if you can find a way to get to Lubbock, you know, you can have it. And I was like, Chris, no shot, my guy. And so I got a car. And it was just like my friend, like he wouldn't have known about me needing a car if my friend didn't like share that with him. It's just like living in community is beautiful. And I know that there are so many other stories within our church of that happening. I know of another friend who like we raised money to get him a car. And then I have another friend, she lives in Poland and there's a wedding happening soon and we really wanted her to come, but they didn't have enough finances. So we got her a ticket to come. And it's like man, just radical giving stirs the people with God. And also like so many mission trips. We have never had a team, also if you're support raising right now, this is a testimony, but we've never had a team not be fully funded. It just hasn't happened. And even this past Revive, we had like some families help some people go, and for Fall Retreat, it's like we have scholarships sometimes. And it's just like people committing to radically giving in the body of Christ because we are one mind. Back to Philippians 2, what I read earlier, being of the same mind, having the same love, being in full accord and of one mind with one another. It's just really beautiful, really important. So yeah, using our resources given by God to glorify Him and blessing others, focusing on radical generosity. Radical is one of my favorite words. Should use it more often. Yes. 7:23. I'm gonna give y'all like 2 minutes to discuss this question, and I'm gonna hop into my last one. But yeah, it's discuss with each other how to use your resources given by God to glorify Him and bless others, focusing on radical generosity. 2 minutes. Alright. Sweet. Sorry, that was a shorter discussion. Can I get 2 or 3 golden nuggets from that one? Over the shoulder. Or one?
What was the question?
Santi, how can you be generous?
How can you be generous?
Yeah.
I think part of it is like recognizing that what you have isn't, well, it is yours, but it was given to you.
Yeah.
And it's things like, I should like their car example, personally hit me because one summer I didn't have a car because I wrecked it. Mm-hmm. And I hate being stuck at home. And that was what I had to deal with for half that summer. And I was just like, man, like Lord, and I got my car back and I was like, thank God that I get my car back, and anyone who needs a ride, they can have it from me. Just like really, really recognizing that all that has been given to you is God's, I think is like a great way to like be generous. But it's a step in that direction.
Totally agree. Anyone?
When you were talking about, I was just reminded of the passage in Luke where it talks about with what you measure to others, it will be measured unto you. And so, basically, and that doesn't necessarily mean physical reward on earth, right?
Yeah.
But I think Luke kind of gets into the analogy of a cup of flour, right? If you just kind of just scoop it in and hand it to the other person, well, then that's what you're going to get back. But if you scoop it in, pack it down, scoop it more, get as much as you possibly can in there and give that to them with a cheerful heart, then that's what you're going to receive, right? It's not about giving so that you can get something, but when you do give, you do receive.
Yeah. Yeah, it's totally the heart posture as well, which I think goes back to like the honor thing as well. It's like, man, what is my heart towards this person when I'm giving? What is my heart towards God? And yeah, I agree, that's definitely an important factor. This last point I'm going to touch on is just something that comes up, I feel, so often in college, but guy-girl dynamics, segregation, how do we do this in community? How do I be friends with the opposite gender? Should I be friends with the opposite gender? On the front end, I want to say guys and girls can be friends. Like that is okay to have a friend who is a guy, girl, whatever. You don't have to be weird about it. Like Orlando is my friend. Like I have guy friends. When I think about like a vibrant Christian community, by the way, vibrant is a big vision that Clayton has for our college ministry. The word vibrant. So if you've heard me say it a lot, or Jacqueline or Clayton, like it's because we want to be a vibrant community. That's a very side note. But when I think about a vibrant Christian community, I think it does look like brothers and sisters both encountering God, living generously, and having fun together. And so everything we've talked about tonight should be done with brothers and sisters. At the same time, I will say I don't think that it is necessarily the most wise for the people that you are closest to be of the opposite gender. I think guys need a close group of guys to really be in their corner, knowing everything about them. At the same time, girls need a close group of girls to really be in their corner, knowing everything about them. Like that deep heart-to-heart stuff, the group where you are confessing everything to, and they know all the stuff in your life, like that really should be reserved for the same gender, because that's like really deep, and like that's an intimate place that I think there should be boundaries with opposite genders. They should have, and I don't think it's helpful or honoring even for that to be happening, like across genders. At the same time, I've said at the same time a lot. Similarly, I'm not going to say that I think it's bad to be like one-on-one alone with a guy necessarily. Like for example, if you're sitting in the MSC and you just like happen to be studying with some of the opposite gender, I'm not going to run up to you and be like, bad, red flag, purple. Like that's not what I'm trying to say. Like it's okay to like spend time, but it's just that like it's not necessarily ideal or beneficial to spend a lot of one-on-one time with someone of the opposite gender, especially if that context, like I said, is like the deep, hard stuff. It's just like, there's a lot of emotions that go into that. You know, like when Clayton talked last week about dating, you know, there's like physical boundaries, yes, but also like emotionally and spiritually and mental. Like there's like different categories of boundaries. And so you want to have that in your friendships too, you know, just because y'all aren't like kissing or dating or whatever doesn't mean you can just go all the way emotionally. Like you have to guard your heart in friendships as well. So that's why I'm just saying I don't think it's wise if your best friend is like of the opposite gender necessarily. Y'all can be close, y'all can fool around for sure, but just make sure you're like guarding your heart in your friendships too, because I think I've just seen that over time those type of situations tend to be unhelpful and confusing most of the time. Just in general, save the deep conversations for people with the same gender. And that's really all I have to say on that. It's not that deep, just don't be weird about it. You can have opposite gender friends, that's totally fine. Yeah, that's all that I really have for us tonight.